call today?
Uh,
Real quick. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think before you do roll call, we do have a new member that was appointed, Doug Sprick. He's for the, taking over for Nate Swiger from the CAPS. He has been sworn in by our clerk, so he is able to participate fully today. But before roll call, there's a new name on the list, so I also want everybody to know. So.
Thank you for the introduction.
Yep.
And Jen, thank you for replacing that vacancy so quickly.
Welcome,
Welcome,
Doug.
John.
Doug.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Ms. Brown?
No, Doug is our Director of Facilities and Maintenance. He's doing a great job. He is newer to us, I would say, in the last year or so, but he's been exceptional, so he'll bring some value here.
All right, good deal. All right, back to section 1, roll call. Caitlin?
Yep. Tenza,
Here.
Theobald,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Hamner,
Here.
Solomon,
Here.
Pesha, Johnson, Sprick,
Here.
Schichtel,
Here?
Warner.
Here.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. Section 2, approval of the agenda. If I could have a motion and support, please.
So moved.
Support.
Theobald,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hamner,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Pesha, Johnson, Sprick,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Schichtel.
Yes. Okay, section 3, approval of the minutes of December 17th, 2025. If I could have a motion and support on that, please.
I would make that motion.
Support?
Brown,
Yes.
Hamner,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Pesha, Johnson, Sprick,
Yes.
Tenza,
Yes.
Theobald,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Schichtel.
Yes. Thank you. Section 4, public comment. This is a session with no open dialogue. You may address the board with your comments, and each person has 3 minutes. Ask that you please state your name and where you reside, and also sign in.
Good morning. My name is Art Stevens. I'm a Cadillac resident. Simply here to just thank the. Oh, I thought that was mine. Sorry. To congratulate you and thank you. If it wasn't for this board, I can 100% tell you the grant that was approved for PFAS from Congressman Molinar's office would not have happened without this board. They did require a resolution of support from the unit. That was one of the requirements. The city council, since they did not do that, the LDFA resolution that your board did filled that void. It would not have happened without your efforts. And Mrs. Brown, thank you. The letters of support, like from the school, was critical. Mr. Warner and Mr. Tenza and your chairman Schichtel, your guys' efforts on that was, this wouldn't have happened without. So just here to say thank you on that very much. All of your support with this was critical. Then a real quick thing on the bylaws, I just wanted to just make one clarification. I know I did come back here before about following them. I know last night it was addressed about how much I've cost the city with attorney fees on it. I never mentioned about needing attorney fees for the bylaws just to follow them, so just wanted to make sure that clarification. But the main reason was to tell you guys thank you for making that happen. That's going to be a good thing for Cadillac. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Mr. Chair, I know I may be breaking protocol. We called in the lefty from the bullpen with Art on the Molinar grant. He was the one that actually hand-delivered it to the Molinar office and followed it through, so definitely part of the team that made this work. Thank you, Art.
David Powell, mayor of the city of Cadillac. I just want to introduce myself and replicate what Art has said. I want to thank you guys for everything that you guys do, and I just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we'll move on to section 5, the treasury report. I think Owen has
Yeah,
stuff with
Mr.
that? And then-
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I've asked the Director of Finance, because it's the first time we have a pretty heavy volume of information, and we have past dialogue about amending the budget, post-action approvals and actions that came after the spring budget. So I'm going to deflect to Owen for more articulation on all of this, so thank you, Owen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for moving this item up in the agenda a little bit. I gotta get on the road to TC here in about 15 minutes, so I appreciate that time. I just want to go briefly through, because this update for this month is a little bit more meaty than a typical month for a couple of reasons, as you'll see as we go through here. The first section of the memo is kind of the standard report out on what was spent during the month. And for the most part, those are fairly typical expenses. The contracted laboratory was a little bit more because of the volume of tests as Fleece Vandenbrink completed their work that we had to send for the contractual lab testing. The bigger part of the update for the operating fund is on the budget status. So over the last couple of meetings, we did talk about the upcoming need for a budget amendment as we work through some of the contractual services and the things that we've had to do. And at the last meeting specifically, we mentioned a 6-month review, and that we'd be here at this meeting presenting the need for a budget amendment. So there's a couple of reasons that's needed. Primarily, that is the work that's been completed by Fleece and Vandenbrink when they bid this, and it was awarded in May of 2024. I think there's been some obvious need for additional work and time and all of that was needed to complete those required testing activities that needed to take place. That contract originally with Fleece and Vandenbrink was a 5-year contract. In the bid, it did kind of break it down by year, but overall that was about $163,000. $163,932 was the total 5-year award on that contract. And so far for the cost that we incurred for these testing events was $86,123.17. We've paid a bill for $8,500. We do have 2 invoices that are due and payable, and I'd like to get those taken care of this week, hopefully, in the amount of $77,623.17. I think we're nearing completion of those substantial testing and reporting activities. I know that Molly is here from Fleece and Vandenbrink to kind of walk through a little bit later in the meeting what a lot of that additional work was and what we're kind of looking at in terms of an outlook for what the annual testing may look like moving forward. I do believe the board at some point will need to consider an amendment to that award and agreement with Fleece and Vandenbrink so that they can continue to do that work. We're still within the 5-year total, so I don't believe we need to do that today, but we'll keep a close eye on that and work with Molly and her team to make sure that we're addressing that appropriately. And then in November, that additional well survey was added, so that was kind of an additional unanticipated cost as well. Moving on to page 2 of the treasurer's report, just a couple more reasons for a budget amendment. Want to put in some extra appropriation for testing costs so that we don't run into a situation where we're not spending, or we run out of budget if we need to do some additional testing as they complete those activities for the current fiscal year. The original budget for contracted lab was $30,000. We've incurred to date, including these December costs, $24,498.19. And again, that could be something that we address later in the meeting on what we would anticipate for the rest of the year. At this point, I'm just recommending an additional $15,000 in that line item. So overall, about a $95,000 increase in the current fiscal year's budget. And those additional costs will need to be funded by an additional transfer from the capital projects fund. So that'll be included in the budget amendment as well. At the end here, at the end of my material, I'll do a little bit better summation of the actual budget amendment. That's the last page of the financial part of the memo. That's all I'll say for now. In a few minutes, we'll kind of put a bow on that. The capital projects fund earned a typical interest on the cash and investments, and spent an additional $62,7615 on the geosyntech work. So the total approved budget for that is $28,400, and including last month's bill, $9,909.90 has been billed to date. Happy to report that the fiscal year 2025 independent audit was complete. The statements for the LDFA are included in that because the LDFA is a component unit of the city, and there were no findings on the audit. We received a clean, it's referred to as an unmodified, but that represents a clean audit opinion on the financial statements. I did include the 2 pages from our complete audit statements in your packet here, but just to summarize very briefly, the operating fund had a transfer in of $260, spent $255. So the math isn't quite math in there. So revenues over expenditures of a little bit. So the LDFA capital projects fund, again, had captured taxes come in and some interest, and then the transfer out to the operating fund and some contractual services. So the fund balance in the capital projects fund went down by about $100,000, but that's anticipated because we're using those funds to cover the operations in the LDFA operating fund. The next 2 pages are just the typical summary from our financial system. The 2 pages after that are the pages from the audit, and on the bottom those say page 134 and 135. So if you are looking at our full audit document on the website, that's where you would find those pages. But that kind of summarizes what took place. So you can see on page 135, that second page there. Everybody following me? It's from the audit report. The furthest left column there, where it says Local Development Finance Authority, you can see the expenditures of $255, the transfer in of $260. That's actually then revenues over expenditures of $4,731. I just grabbed the wrong number there, the 5860, and put it on the summary page. So it's actually the 4731. So the operating fund does have a fund balance of $10,591. The capital projects fund at the end of fiscal year 25 had a fund balance of $1,086,987. And it was after that then that we transferred in the $431 from the residual well fund. So that fund balance has gone up pretty substantially in the 6 months after the fiscal year 25 ended. Any questions on that?
So is that
Kind of a
utility
lot.
fund, you're not gonna use that anymore? Is that why you transferred it over, or?
The what fund now?
That 431-753?
The 431, yeah, that was where they had the well for the power plant, and that well was as part of the original agreement, that well was transferred, the ownership of that well to the power company, and so there was these residual funds.
Is it a one-time?
Yep, so it's a one-time transfer over of all those residual funds from that utilities fund where we accounted for the income and expenses to maintain that well. So all of that residual balance was transferred to the LDFA Capital Projects Fund.
On Exhibit A, the very last page, it was audit of $600. everything I've seen of Gaybridge audits, they're a lot higher than that, is that?
Yep, so let me just get into that page now. This will be the last part of the information that I want to present.
Sorry.
This is what, no, that's fine. Nope, that's fine. It's a good question. This is what our typical budget amendment request looks like when it goes to council. So I presented it kind of in the same way to this board, and this is what it will need to look like. So on the operating side, the original estimated transfer required to cover operations was $297. That will need to be increased to $392. And again, at the end of the year, we'll only transfer the amount over that's needed to cover actual expenditures. So if expenditures come in low, we'll transfer a little bit less. You can see all the line items that are budgeted. And so the two line items that I am recommending that the board amend and increase are the contractual services and the contracted lab costs. So those are just based on the activities that we've had to do for the year. To answer Mr. Solomon's question on the audit, we pay one audit fee, and we've just allocated a small amount of that to the different activities. So the general fund of the city pays for the lion's share of the audit. So
And we haven't posted our audit expense yet in the LDFA.
that's right. Yep, we just got the bill. We'll pay it in January.
Good
So,
question, Mike.
yep.
Owen, so our number that we're looking to amend brings us to 392 for the year.
Yep.
And I know, the board may or may not seek additional studies, additional.
Yep.
But going forward, will this be our new baseline? Do we, and I can ask Molly this.
Yeah, I think that information will come out here as they get kind of in the rhythm of what the annual testing requirements then will look like. Now that we've got the process in place, the plan approved, I think we'll have a pretty good feel. The new year, the fiscal year 27 budget process has just kicked off. Don't have projections or anything yet, but as part of what we'll bring, and my recommendation would be, let's bring that to a discussion here at the February meeting. That timing fits in well with how it needs to go before the city council. So as part of that, we'll have discussions on exactly what we'll be looking at, and then we can build in some additional amounts if we anticipate some other studies. There's also the budget in the capital projects fund that we've kind of had a placeholder there of $50,000 for contractual services. The ones that we classify over there are more like, systemic studies where what's the future of the treatment process? What are some new things we could do? What are some explorative things that we may need to pay some contractual services to look at? So, in my mind, those are non-operational. So we've sort of accounted for those in the capital projects fund as the big picture of the authority. It's the operating ones like testing and surveying that we've paid for from the operating fund. So we do have some additional budget already that if we want to do some of that, we can do it.
Okay. I mean, I imagine, this will all get sorted out, further discussed.
Yeah, and again, the budget is a fluid document also, as we're doing here tonight or today. There's been a change in anticipated activity from what it was last spring when we approved a budget. So that happens all the time.
Just in general, I don't think going forward we're going to need to do as much testing.
No, I don't think so either, and I think that's,
We won't need an optimization study every year.
Right.
That's a
Yep.
big chunk. Sorry.
Yep. No, that's okay. We just wanted to try to be transparent.
Yep.
Because we've dialogued on this, and
Yep.
as Owen and I interfaced. Just to Mike's question, so everybody's clear, the utilities fund now is dissolved. We no longer will show any,
That's correct.
okay.
Yep. It's all been transferred, and that's closed out by action of the board and the city council.
I do have a revenue question for you, Owen. I know
Okay.
but are you running up against a hard stop right now? Do you got minute?
I got about 4 minutes.
4
Yep,
minutes,
yep.
okay.
Thank you. And thank you for accommodating that, sorry.
I apologize, I should have maybe
That-
warmed you,
it's
I
okay.
should have like called in this question
Yep,
ahead of the
problem.
meeting, but, and I realize you may not be able to answer this now, but the Mitchell property, and this is a question regarding revenue.
Okay,
And I know you track dollars and costs and revenue from brownfields as well as the LDFA. Mitchell, as you know, is a brownfield authority, and our friends from Consumers Energy built a lovely new solar garden there. I think it's about $2 million worth of incremental capital. And that is
taxable value, not cash.
taxable value.
Yep.
And that's generating, I think we're generating some TIF funds
Yep.
for that.
Yep.
If I understand the LDFA boundaries correctly, it's also in the LDFA, and that's also incremental tax revenue. Who's on first? I mean, is that incremental tax revenue going primarily to the brownfield fund or the LDFA?
Yeah, right now it's going to the Brownfield Fund. There was some debt that was taken out to clean that facility up. That debt will be, I believe, paid for either this fiscal year or in fiscal year 27. So then it would, I'd have to go back and look at the brownfield plan. Sometimes when costs have already been reimbursed, you can maintain that capture for a period of up to 5 years to seed your local revolving fund that then you can use for other general, approved activities. So we'll have to just kind of see what that brownfield plan says, and I'm happy to review that and kind of report back out on whether that would then add to the LDFA's tax roll or not. I don't know that off the top of my head. Sorry.
I apologize.
But I can certainly make a note to review that.
Would it be eligible?
Right.
Subject to brownfield authority.
Right. Is it in that captured district? And I'm not sure that it is. I know it probably would have been in the assessment district, but there's a couple different things going on out there.
Okay.
So I just have to.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm glad you're working with the details.
Yep.
I won't say the devil, but
We're
the
trying.
details.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Thank you, Owen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last thing then is just that same kind of amendment to the LDFA capital projects. We are going to earn a little bit more interest than anticipated, so amended that in there. Based on what we've spent on the geosyntax study at this point, we're going to be below our appropriation for contractual services expenditures. That's not a necessary thing to reduce it, but I just thought to just kind of show that, the full impact of what's going to happen in this fiscal year isn't necessarily a $95,000 increase. We're going to spend a little bit less somewhere. So that's why I included that. So then there you see then the additional transfer out of $95,000. So my recommendation would be, as long as, I'm happy to answer any more questions on this amendment, but would be to consider a motion to approve the amendment. And then it would just need to be then ratified by city council, just like they have to do with the budget. So it has to start here and then go to city council.
I'd make a motion to approve the amendment as presented by Owen.
I'll second.
Theobald,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hamner,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Pesha, Johnson, Sprick,
Yes.
Tenza,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Schichtel.
Yes.
Very clear, Owen, thank you.
All right, good. Any more questions? I'm happy to stick around for 45 more seconds. So thank you again for accommodating the schedule on that. I don't like to do that. But.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for that motion. Taking the lead.
And thank you to Bill for working together on that.
Yeah, I think we could. Who's on first?
Safe travels. All right, that brings us to section 7, or section 6, discussion of bylaw review. And I'll start on this one. I just wanted to apologize to the board. The technology that I was reading a lot of the emails, I never saw any of the responses to any of my comments to be added or be considered. And upon further review, apparently Apple devices don't show certain things that personal computers do. So the information has always been there. So thank you for the hard work for everyone that's been involved with this. But I personally, my 5 or 6 comments I feel like have been answered, and I appreciate the time of our attorney and everybody on the subcommittee, Ms. Brown, Ms. Thiebolt, and Mr. Tenza, and who am I forgetting here? But everybody that's been involved, and Jeff for your involvement too. So as for myself, I feel really good about the updates, but I know there was some other people that had comments. I know Mike had some comments last meeting when I was gone. Mr. Solomon had a comment. I know, Julie, you had some comments. Does anybody have any further discussion? I'm hoping that we can proceed and vote as a board so that we can pass this on to City Council. But again, I want to open the table for any
good
other
with everything I had.
concerns. You feel good about your comments? How about you, Julie?
Good.
Okay. Mr. Solomon, you talked about a waiver last meeting.
Well, it's the terminology in here which seems awkward, but it's livable,
Okay.
interpretable.
Okay. Was there anybody else on the board that wanted to discuss any issues? Okay. With that, would someone like to,
I'll make a motion,
motion
to
to-
approve the bylaws.
Support.
thank you.
Brown,
Yes.
Hamner,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Pesha, Johnson, Sprick,
Yes.
Tenza,
Yes.
Theobald,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Schichtel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I think it speaks volumes how this board has come together on various issues, so thank you, everyone, for working together. That brings us to section 7, review of old actions, subsection A, carbon regeneration, bid documents. Jeff, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Hey, it's been a long time since I talked here.
Yeah.
Usually I'm all the talking. It's great to this time. Brian and I had met out at the LDFA and discussed certain things with a vendor or multiple vendors we have over time. And so we are getting bid documents together to put out a bid to have our carbon regenerated or replaced. I mean, we're going to allow multiple bids on this, but we are getting a bid document out that we'll put out pretty soon in in January, that will allow people either to rejuvenate our carbon, our spent carbon on site, or have appropriate other alternative ways to do it. But our preferred method is to regenerate that carbon, reuse that carbon, and actually use it on site. We do believe it will be cheaper than replacing with the iodized carbon, that the price of the iodized carbon that we would need. So it is something we're going to put out to bid. We've been talking about that, so I just want to bring that back out. We have the certain bid requirements that we're going to put out. Like one of the things, we'd like it regenerated on site, but you can do an alternate if you have some other technology that comes in and it's a lot better and it's a lot cheaper. We can do that, but we're not going to preclude people from bidding. But it certainly is our preferred method. We do believe the board would want that. Second item I had, and I didn't list it, I'm sorry about that, but I just got this morning. The rerouting of the flows to take S1 and S2 to the carbon. We have had one meeting with one contractor who says he can do the work, and we have a couple more meetings set up. They're all going to provide a bid. Well, I'll call it a bid. I don't think it's more of a what it will cost them to do it, and then we will present that to the council as soon as we get multiple ones. It is coming in. I don't want to say the price, but it is very livable with what they have provided so far. One contractor, so I could use that one and be satisfied. So I'm assuming any other bids we get will be at that price or lower. Again, I don't want to say what the person provided because put them at a disadvantage. So that's it on those, the old actions. So,
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add to the UB technology or regeneration, or you just want to leave it at that for now?
Let's leave it at, I mean, it's good. It's good we're looking at options. It's good that we have a preference. It's a new technology, so options are good. We'll see what comes in. Thank you, Mike, for your comments. There'll be some specifications like percent removal, and then the system, if they hit the percent removals, will move away. But I think the proof is in the pudding. That, you know, we put the carbon back in place, and it should work as, you know, by removing PFAS as the canister we have in now. But I think I'd like, Jeff will talk to you later, but we're looking at maybe a payment retention until we get that data. So that'll be the incentive for them to come back and make sure that the carbon is treating PFAS as it has before. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's taken PFAS levels down from 5, 6, 7 to below 4, and I would expect that it performed. But that'll take a couple months to switch over the canisters. So talking about those kinds of things for, you know, for protection of, you know, protection of performance. And certainly welcome any input you have on the process. I did talk to Stephen Bush, he's the Eagles engineer for PFAS controls, and he's familiar with the WRS site in Wyoming. And I asked him, well, just pretty simple question, does it work? And yeah, they wouldn't have it in place if it didn't, and it works well. They chose that over buying new carbon. He said, I can't tell you, is it better than buying new carbon? Is it more effective? Will new carbon last longer? Even, you know, every situation is different. In the end, I think it'll come down to a judgment call. You know, we won't have a perfect answer, but I'd like to try for some risk mitigation, a new technology, see how that works. But we'll see. Thank you, Mike.
All right. That brings us to section 8, groundwater treatment plant operation updates. Jeff, back to you.
yep. So I'm just going to provide a quick summary of what we did last month and then actually what we did for the year. I will do my annual report in February. That would be the more full, broad ranging. But we treated 65.379 million gallons of water was treated through the treatment system. And we had 8.72 pounds of VOC removed for the month of December. For the year, we had 759 million gallons treated and 97.4 pounds of VOC was removed in 2025. I do have the 2024 numbers. In 2025, we did 759 million gallons. In 24, we did 745 million gallons of treatment. So we treated, I don't know, 14 more million gallons in 25. In 24, we removed 106.1 pounds of VOCs. In 25, we removed 97.4. So we actually removed 9 pounds less, and we treated 14 million more gallons. So again, all of our numbers are showing that there's less and less out there. You know, even when we bring a bigger volume of water in, we're getting less removed from the water because the contamination isn't as strong as it was. So, or we're, you know, it's less, we're shrinking it. So that's our monthly report, and again, next month I will have the full annual report for you guys. And that's it.
All right. Any questions or comments for Jeff before we move on? All right, thank you, sir. That brings us to section 9, update on progress of geocentric environmental consulting and optimization services. Jeff?
Yep, I recently had talked to Eric from Geosyntec. I sent him out a message, seeing if we owed him any documents and where they were on the process. They needed some flow information. We gave that to them, flow of the groundwater levels. We have provided them all the quarterly testing results, all the flow data, all the well survey. We did everything they needed, and they are very happy working on the report, and that report should be ready for us by the end of February. Whether it'll make the February meeting or not, they're not sure, but it will be, they're projecting that their report will be ready for us by the end of February, and we'll be either get it in the February meeting or we'll do it in the March meeting. So.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. This is section 10, update on the progress of Flesh and Vanderbrink's environmental consulting, and we have Molly here today. Thank you, Molly.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. You should have some information in your packet that looks kind of like this with some numbers on it. That's the first part. We have completed the first round of sampling. It was completed in October and November of last year, and the data came in December, and it looks pretty good. So as for not having been sampled in 4 years, the extent of contamination has been reduced from where it was 4 years ago, which is naturally occurring for one thing, and also we've been continuing to pump and treat water. So everything looks to be in good shape with regard to water treatment. We found pretty much what was expected for TCE and PCE, which are trichloroethylene and tetrachloroethylene. Those are the two contaminants, the two VOC contaminants that we've been tracking for quite a while. You have maps in the packet that show the extent of those contaminants.
We didn't do those maps.
Oh, you didn't do the maps. Let me get you maps.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's why I asked you last night if you want me to do them or if you were gonna, so.
Okay. I have maps for you.
You have a plan, you have a plan B.
Well, I already have it printed out. This has all the first two documents plus the maps.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you, Molly.
Yep.
Thank you.
So there's 4 pages of maps in here, which are the exciting part.
Thank you.
First page is
Yeah, I'll take one. We need it for our records.
So the first 2 pages are budget things, but the 4 pages of maps kind of show the picture of where we are with contamination remaining in the aquifer. There's 2 for the upper aquifer, the shallow aquifer, and 2 for the intermediate aquifer. The shallow aquifer, there's not a whole heck of a lot there. With regard to tetrachloroethylene, we found it in 1 well at 1.7 micrograms per liter, and the limit is 1, so we're pretty darn close there. For trichloroethylene, we found it in 1 extraction well at 5.4 micrograms per liter. The limit for trichloroethylene is 5 micrograms per liter. So in the shallow aquifer, things are looking really, really good. We have more impact in the intermediate aquifer, and you can see in the other 2 maps. It's a little more extensive, but the concentrations, still need some work. So that's where the extraction and treatment continues. With regard to the monitoring event, as Owen mentioned, it cost quite a bit more than we originally anticipated for a couple of reasons. The first was, last time I was here, which was last August, talked about the fact that EPA was kind of upping the ante. They were asking us to do more monitoring than had been done before, to add a bunch of extra wells, to do some extra analyses. So that increased the cost. There were also some setbacks with regard to the sampling itself. The wells are in pretty rough shape. They're old. They're really old. And when they sat for 4 years without being touched, they got a lot of debris built up in them. There was old tubing in them. They found a dead mouse in one of the monitoring wells. How did that get there? Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that they had to fish out of the wells and get the wells cleaned out. Jeff had a driller come out and help with about 10 of the wells to get them clean. So that's just to get debris out so we could get the pump down to pull the sample. So it took longer than we anticipated, and it was challenging, but we are at a point now where we have got new tubing in all of the wells. We've got a system down. We think we know what's working. But the wells themselves, the well screens, there's evidence that some of those well screens are clogged or not functioning as they should. And the reason I can say that is there are a couple of wells that we went out and took water levels in all of the wells before we started. And then as we sample them, we would pump some water out to circulate the water to try to get clean water out of the aquifer for the testing, and that's part of the protocol that we have to follow. In wells that we went back to a second time, the water level had dropped. And I can talk about one well, monitoring well 7, we actually purged it 3 times because they went out, they got the water level, it was like 29.5 feet down to water. And then Riley went out to take the sample, she purged about 2 gallons out of it, took her first sample, which was a hexavalent chromium sample, and then went back later, a week later, to get a VOC sample, and the water was 3 feet lower than it was when she started last time. So she purged some more water out of it, grabbed her VOC sample. We then got the results back from the chromium testing, and there was high chromium in the well. So I talked to Jeff and said, do we want to resample it? He said, yep, go and resample. So she went a 3rd time. When she went to sample the well, it was down 10 feet from where it initially started when she went to take the 3rd sample. So what's happening there is as water is being purged, it's not flowing back into the well as quickly as it's being taken out. And that's because there's clogging in that screen, because the screen should have free flow with the aquifer material so that the water level can adjust and be hydrostatically compatible with the groundwater level. And the fact that the water keeps going down every time it's purged and it doesn't come back up is a sign that there's something going on with that screen. So that well definitely needs some work. There are a couple of more wells that have some blockages farther down in the well, so we couldn't get the pump all the way down to the bottom where we want to have it to collect the sample. So there were a number of wells that still need to have more work done. EPA requested early on that we should probably redevelop, meaning a well driller go in and pump water from these wells, redevelop them, and clear the screens out before we do any sampling. And we said, you know, we really just want to get out there and get the first round done, and then we'll worry about it. So we're kind of at that point now that we should probably go out and purge those wells, get them cleaned out before we do our next round of sampling. At this point, we're planning to be back in March for our next round. So with regard to sampling and the contaminants.
Before you leave that,
Yes.
is the sediment size in the groundwater such that it can potentially clog your filter?
There are what drillers call fines. So you get really fine silty material mixed in with the sand, and that's normal. There's a certain percentage of it. Most sand that you have is a combination of a number of different grain sizes, all the way down from tiny, tiny silt up to what you'd think of as a sand grain. So that fine stuff, when you put in a well the first time, you pump it to get that fine stuff out of there. And then it's usually in pretty good shape. But more of it will eventually work its way in. And that's what we want to take care of now and get the well screens functioning as well as possible.
Are the wells of sufficient size that the screens can be replaced if necessary, or do they have to be redrilled.
You cannot replace them. Some of them, well, they're between 70 and 175 feet below ground. So really the only thing you could do would be to put in a new well.
Yep.
But typically, you know, redevelopment like this on older wells, I've worked on a lot of wells that are as old as these are, and redevelopment works really well to improve the flow.
Molly, how many wells are we talking about redeveloping?
That's, I guess, a question that we should probably talk about, because I can think of probably 3 or 4 that definitely need it. Or do we, I hate to say.
Do we do it all, or do we do?
Or do them, or you do them all and then be done? I guess that's,
Well, obviously, we gotta do the ones that need it.
Yep.
I mean, for sure.
Yep.
But do you do extra beyond that?
right. And the question comes that, you know, part of what we're doing is trying to determine the groundwater flow. And when we aren't confident in the water level because the well's not recovering the way it should, it kind of jeopardizes your flow model because you don't have accurate data to compare. So, Jeff, to your question, if we go and we clean half of the wells and we don't clean the other half, we're going to have half of the wells that are giving us really good data and the other half that may or may not be, we don't know. So that's really what it comes down to, and how much data do we really need? And it, you know, EPA might have a say in it too. So that's one of the things that we'll need to sort through as we move through the first quarter data and discussions with EPA. And with regard to discussions with EPA, monitoring, we wrote the initial monitoring plan. EPA said, nope, we want you to change it, do all these things, and now you have what is called an interim monitoring plan. We want you to do this one round of sampling and then regroup and redesign a new program. One of the things they said when they wanted us to change it was that they wanted VOCs to be analyzed for 4 quarters. So we've done 1 quarter. Do they want us to do 4 quarters before we change our plan, or do they want us to redesign the plan after 1 quarter? That's something we need to figure out. I've looked at a lot of the information that this sampling generated. I don't know how comfortable I am making sweeping changes to the monitoring program based on 1 monitoring event. But comparing it to historic data, and when the monitoring plan comes out, we've got a lot of tables involved that have trending for old data versus new data. And you'll see that the general trend is downward for a lot of these contaminants. And so I'm more comfortable in those situations saying that we're making progress. With regard to hexavalent chromium, the hexavalent chromium monitoring is being done for the Northern Air Superfund site. However, EPA declared in 2010 that hexavalent chromium was remediated. So the monitoring that's been going on since then has been kind of confirming that. And I talked to Jeff about it, and he said that, you know, really what EPA wants to see is that they want to be able to make the statement that PFAS is not coming from the Northern Air site. So one of the things EPA talked about was monitoring all the chromium wells for PFAS to try to figure that out. Ultimately, it would be really nice to close the Northern Air site and have that off the books. But we have to figure out exactly the hoops that we need to jump through to do that.
If I may, Molly, too, if we, again, just for the public, if we did close down the Northern Air site, none of our extraction wells would stop running, because we are, I'll say, double dipping. We are using extraction wells to clean the Northern Air site, and those same extraction wells we're using to clean the Kaiser site. So essentially, it would just be taking something off the books that we would no longer have to test for hexavalent chrome or chromium, but the treatment would still be running. And so if there was a a blip that we did not detect, it would still go through all of our treatment process. So even though we're shutting down a Superfund site, nothing would change at the plant because of that. It would still, the extraction wells that we're running would still be running, and then the treatment at the plant. Where those wells went to the carbon or the air stripping, whichever one, they would still go to those processes, even without Northern Air being on the books anymore. So just want to put that out there again for the public. It's not that we're stopping cleanup. It still would happen. It's just we wouldn't have to check for chromium. So.
Did you have a question?
So, yeah, I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse here, but obviously
Go for it.
redeveloping the wells is important, at least 3 or 4. We haven't talked cost, but to do something, what's the timeline for the EPA to give us feedback? Because if we do something and the EPA comes back and says, I want X amount of wells to be redeveloped or whatever, or additional wells to be done, what is the timeline that we're going to hear feedback from the EPA so that we can be proactive with some of this redeveloping?
Well, with us having these results, Catherine wants to meet with Molly and I and talk about these results. So I think if the board would indulge me on this, I think if the board said, hey, Jeff, go out and clean up the 3-4 wells that need the redevelopment, have those done, or, you authorize me to do those, I can get a cost on what the whole project would be. But we could tell the EPA, hey, we're getting these 3 or 4 that we know, 4, 5, whatever we determine, that we're suspect at. We're redeveloping those. What more do you want? But we'd be that proactive that we know these ones have a problem. We're going to take care of them right away. Not even asking EPA if we should or shouldn't take care of those. We're taking care of them, redeveloping them, and then we ask after those 4 or 5 are done, what do you want? And the contractor we used for going out there and not redeveloping, but opening up the wells, I was really surprised at his price point and glad of it. So I would assume that I would be happy with what he seems very reasonable. And if I was doing it for my house, I would be using him every day. So
Pearson?
I don't want to,
Don't
yes, but I don't want to say, come on.
I'm not asking you to disclose the number. How many total wells if we did the whole?
There's probably close to 50, more than 50.
50.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. And we're doing a lot of monitoring. We have done a lot of monitoring. And that kind of leads me into the next question that we have for EPA is, moving forward, do we have to continue monitoring this many wells? Can we start to cut back? And that's going to have a big part of the cost of monitoring going forward. On this budget table that I put together, which is very, very rough estimates, shows original contract, it was roughly $31,000 to $33,000 a year for us to go out and do the sampling. The one that we just did, as Owen was saying, significantly more expensive to do all of the sampling that EPA requested. I think if we can dial it back some, we can bring the cost down to somewhere around $50,000 a year, and that'll do 3 quarterly events and an annual event. So those are not firm numbers by any means, but it just gives you a sense of the scope of what the increase would be. That would include continuing 3 more sampling events, doing the long list of VOCs, a number of wells for 1,4-dioxane, even though we only had exceedances in 2 of them. But continuing, getting some more 1,4-dioxane measurements, sampling maybe 10 more wells for PFAS, not doing all the wells, but getting more PFAS data. And then at the same time, reducing some of the chromium monitoring to monitor more of a perimeter rather than everything inside and outside the CIP, which was what was happening before. And hopefully, we can get EPA to say, yeah, that makes sense. And that'll cut down on our costs significantly, because hexavalent chromium, although it's not a complicated analyte, has a 24-hour hold time for the laboratory, which means when we collect samples here in Cadillac, we have to have them back to Grand Rapids by 5 p.m. so that they can analyze them first thing the next morning. So it means that our tech has to drive back and forth every day, which cuts down on the amount of time she has for sampling. She's spending a lot of time driving rather than sampling, and it just complicates the whole sampling activity. So to limit the number of those samples would save a lot of money, more so than just doing fewer analyses.
And Molly, in our dealings with EPA, we will be making a proposal of what we want to do rather than ask the question of what they want us to do.
I would like to do that. My question for you, and this is true with any site I manage, it's your choice if you want to just give a check mark to everything EPA says, or if you want some pushback. And you can do it a lot of different ways. So my thought was to propose, and in the monitoring plan that I have drafted right now, there are proposals for how we want to move forward, which would reduce the amount of monitoring. And that report, the monitoring report, will be in Jeff's hands next week. So it's about, yay. So.
Well, I can't speak for the board, but I think we should push back. Any regulatory agency is going to want the ultimate.
Right.
We need to represent our citizens well.
Absolutely.
So, good. Thank you.
Yes. So Jeff and I will be talking, and we'll be talking with Catherine at EPA, hopefully soon, to go over some of this and make some good changes. But at this point, we are scheduled to be out here in March to get another round and keep the monitoring going.
So you're anticipating with the proposal to EPA, the annual cost would move the contracted from 31 to about 50 with what you're anticipating?
That's kind of back of envelope estimate for what our expenses would be. The monitoring expenses that Owen quoted for the first event, those would be reduced because we'd be reducing the amount of samples. So that would cut down the laboratory cost. Another thing I would like to propose to EPA with regard to the laboratory is the way the sampling plan was written was that you have to collect a lot of blank samples and a lot of field blanks and trip blanks and equipment blanks. And a lot of those have to be sampled. You have to collect those every single day. And when our sampler was out here fighting in the wells, and she might only get to 3 of them in a day, you get 3 wells, but then you have to do 3 blanks to go with it. So instead of analyzing 3 samples, you're analyzing 6. So what I want to propose to EPA is that we collect the blank samples but not analyze them unless it's needed for QA/QC. Because really that's what those samples are there to do. If we get a detection, we want to look at the blanks and make sure we didn't have it also in the blanks. And we have so many samples that we collect that are non-detect. There's no need to analyze blank samples for those. So I think I want to propose that yes, we'll still collect the samples, but we are not going to analyze them until we know we need to. And that will save on the analysis cost as well.
Probably, though, they'd probably still have to analyze a certain number just for their QA/QC.
Yep.
They'd have to do 1 in 10 or something.
Right.
Just to meet even though we're providing them 10 blanks, they'd only do 1 if they were all non-detect.
Yes.
They'd have to do a certain number
Right.
just for their QA/QC, but they wouldn't have to do every one.
Exactly.
So.
Way better.
Yeah, it turned out that we just had a ridiculous number of blanks during the first round of sampling because we sampled so few wells each day because of all the work we had to do to get them going. So it got frustrating.
our volume of sampling should go up since the wells have now all been cleared and if we rehab some of them, the ones that don't respond quickly right away.
It will definitely go faster. The tubing is ready. We just have to put the pump in, do the purging, take the pump off the tubing, put it back, and we're done. And it's a much quicker process than pulling out the old tubing, cutting new tubing, getting it all set, forcing it down the well. A lot of the old tubing, which was interesting, was all 25 to 30 feet, and that was as deep as it would go. And I've done my little forensics in my mind of exactly what was happening, and it probably had to do with the pump that the previous sampler was using. If he was using a peristaltic pump on the surface, that's about the deepest it could draw from. We're using an actual submersible pump to sample all the way at the bottom right next to the well screen, which is what the sampling protocol that EPA wants us to use says that we should do. So it requires us to use much longer sections of tubing that go all the way down to the bottom of the well, and it was challenging to get the tubing to go down 100 plus feet at times. So
What's the life of the well? Like, so we're talking about rehab, redevelopment. What's the life of a well, and then what would be the extended life in on redevelopment?
Wells, if they're taken care of, will just go on and on and on. I think I don't have very thorough data on the materials that were used to construct the well, but typically on sites of this age, they use stainless steel for the well screens, and that lasts a long, long time. I think a lot of the piping is galvanized, which should be fine for a very, very long time. So the redevelopment's going to make it function better, and it's going to probably prolong the life too, because the more the sediment gets caked into that well screen, you're never going to get it all out. So you have to, it's kind of a process to keep it going. And really what's going to probably fail on a galvanized well, because a galvanized metal is pretty strong, on a galvanized well, you're going to have the well screen fail. And a lot of times it will be like the coupling between the galvanized and the stainless. You might have it separate there or something like that.
The other thing is these are monitoring wells. In our old well field out there, we had to replace the screens because we were drawing water in all the time. And that water's, even though it's water, it actually erodes the screen but it was, 40, 50 years before those screens would actually start to let stuff through. These are monitoring wells. They do have maybe the stainless steel. They're not getting a whole lot of volume going through there, wearing away the screens. That's a lot of times what happens is the screen on a municipal well or your wells at home would actually wear the screen away because of the water volume going over those screens. But in these, you do 4 pumps a year. Maybe other people might be using those same ones, so maybe you're doing 6, 8 times a year you're pumping, out of these wells. But mainly they're just sitting there, not being worn away.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Molly from the board?
Molly, yeah, I agree with Mike. I don't know if I'd use the word push back, but collaborate.
Yeah.
We all want good risk assessment.
Yes.
We all want good science. Cost effective. There's lots of ideas, creative ideas where I think both EPA, you and the LDFA, we agree that we could look at cost effective options.
Mm-hmm.
We want to really focus our limited resources on risk and. But thank you. A couple of questions, technical questions. Looks to me like whatever contamination from the Superfund sites, we're keeping it in our yard, so to speak. It's not expanding beyond the LDFA's area, threatening residential wells. Would that be your conclusion?
Yes. Yes.
Both intermediate and shallow?
Yeah, intermediate, it's a little a little more challenging. Shallow for sure, there's not an issue. But in the intermediate, trichloroethylene, we did have a detection in intermediate extraction well 9, which is west of the CIP. And the contamination does cross to the north of the CIP just a little bit into an extraction well that's at the northern edge. So it's right at it's at the edges, the trichloroethylene. Tetrachloroethylene, no, it's not going beyond. So ultimately, once we really get good aquifer readings and we are very comfortable with the groundwater flow, working with Geosyntec, I mean, this is part of optimization for the well field, is to make sure that we have the wells working for us, not against us. And we're not pulling contamination away from the site and only pulling it inward toward the site. So that's something that they'll work on.
But
It does look, though, the plume in 1998 was farther outside of
Oh, yeah.
the area, and it's been reduced over time. So I think for people that are looking at these visuals, there has been substantial improvement since 1998.
Right.
this I-9 does not look like it would threaten a residential well area, it's still in the industrial area.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
But it does look like over the years, the zone of, the contamination zone has declined, not nearly as much on the TCE as the PCE, but it's still, the area is still getting less and less.
Yes.
So dioxane, last question, dioxane, two locations.
2 locations exceeded the project action level of 7.2. One was extraction well S2 in the shallow aquifer.
Okay.
The other one was monitoring well K16D, which is just north of the Ingram site, next to the Four Winds site, which is right in the middle of our TCE and PCE plumes.
Do you recall the top of your head, the value of that in the Ingram site?
Right there, 29.1.
Yeah, Jeff's gonna review those in another section,
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
to come, okay.
Yeah, and the level in the extraction well was just over.
8.3.
Yeah, 8.
And the extraction well, if you look on your monitor, the extraction well is right where my pointer is, right there, would be the S2.
You can see it on if you look at the shallow aquifer contamination, it's the same well that has trichloroethylene
Oh,
in
right
it.
there, yeah.
It's that same spot.
Yep, 8.3, right there. So, and the other well is up in this area. So they're certainly separated, you know, and this one's certainly a lot less. But this one was the 29.1, and it's just
Is what it
out
is. Yeah.
in the middle of no place.
So one thing I want to talk to EPA about with regard to 1,4-dioxane is their recommendation was to do a round of sampling and then continue to monitor locations where there were exceedances. So we have 2 exceedances, but there were a heck of a lot of low detections in other parts, not other parts of the site so much, mostly in close, but there were a lot of very low detections. And do they want us to pursue those and get additional data on that, or do we only monitor those 2? And that, to me, doesn't seem like quite enough to just do 2. So that's something we'll be discussing with them. Exactly how much do they want us to monitor?
We
And-
could, I mean, they could do something such as an annual, you do all the wells that had detections, and then when it's not annual, quarterly, you do 5 of them, or whatever they do. So that might be a better solution than just to do the 2, or to do them all every time, too.
Right.
You know, it's just, again, trying to have that happy medium.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Thank you so much, Molly, for
All right,
making
thank
the
you.
trip.
It was a fun drive this morning.
We're getting a little bit past the 1 hour mark, but I think Molly deserves the merit of extra time. So let's move on to section 11, review and update of quarterly testing. Jeff?
Again, for those that, let me get this closed. Okay. I do have the quarterly testing. I provided that to you guys of the extraction wells. It has everything, and it has certain cells here that are highlighted. Where I'm at here. I don't know why this computer is giving me such fits. Anyways, I provided this last time to you guys, and you can look at it on your own, I guess. And I have everything that is above state and federal projects will be highlighted on yours. And you can take a look if you have any questions on it. There is, as Molly said, we've done a lot of testing. And there's, as you can see here, all these NDs. There really isn't a whole lot out there. We had, on this one, this is test results. We had a trichloroethene at SLW 25 above the limit, which is 5 here of the EPA project action limit or the Eagle project limit. Again, there's just, I don't know how many tests we did. I could do the math. I think there's 70 each well. I think we did a couple thousand tests, and there's not a whole lot. I did make this so you guys saw all the non-detects, just because we do a lot of testing, and when I think it gets lost to the number of tests that we do. I also think it gets lost when we do see a bad result or a high result. This is what we're looking for. We're running a cleanup. We want to find the bad stuff so we can get rid of it, and we want to, I think that gets lost a lot of time. We see a number, this MW7, which Molly had talked about, we see the chromium of 174. Again, we thought that was high. They retested it. I'm sure the board's gonna have this well to redevelop. But anyways, it went from a 174 to a 34 to a 37 when it was retested. So I think I'm more confident with the 34 or 37. It's still a high number, but we're looking for those numbers. We're out there trying to find those numbers. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in that the numbers are high or the numbers are showing and it should all be non-detect. Well, someday it will be all non-detect, but it's going to be a while, and we have to realize that. The PFAS results, again, there wasn't a whole lot there. There was a few wells that had some PFAS numbers in it, but most of them, they're, again, on the whole amount that we did, there was 1, 2, 3 that had levels that were above federal or state standards. So there wasn't a whole lot there. And then I did provide the history of everything there. So I guess if there's any questions the board really wants to drill down on, I'm hoping you guys looked at that when I sent it out to you guys. If you have any questions, if you didn't, I'm ready to answer them, but there's not a whole lot out there. It's really low. It's still there. We're looking for it. We still got to clean it up, even though it's low. But if you look at the historic numbers, there was 1,000. There was 1,000, and now we're down to 25. It's amazing what this group, what LDFA has done over the years, is really truly amazing. And I hope everybody realizes the good work that they've done. And again, we just keep getting these test results back that are proving it, but people see the contamination and they get upset about that, but we're looking for that. So.
Right. Thank you, Jeff, for highlighting that stuff.
Yep.
And I know we don't have a lot of data on past history of 1,4 and PFAS, but if there is any, for the wells that we're exceeding, if there is any past data on a few of those, that'd be wonderful over time.
There is none.
Okay.
I mean, I know, again, till 2018, we hadn't even tested any place, for us around here. We started it, we had to do the wastewater plants, we had to do our industries. We did the LDFA, a couple wells out in that area in 2020, 21, but we weren't doing PFAS before then, so, we just don't have that, and they don't keep samples for 20 years, and we can go back and resample them and say, oh, there's this new analyte, we wanna see if it's out there, so, but I do have, 1,4-dioxane. I know the board did not ask me to do it, but I went out and did it anyways. I had our effluent tested for 1,4-dioxane at the wastewater plant, and I thought the board would want the numbers, so on the 11th, 12/11 of December, I did the plant effluent. We did it for what we're releasing out to the Clam River, and our 1,4-dioxane is at 0.74 for the plant, releasing out into the Clam River. As you guys know, the limit for 1,4-dioxane is 8.3 in drinking water. If you got over 8.3, you can't have it. If you have over 3 or 3.2, someplace in there, in your water supply, you have to tell your customers that you have it in your drinking water supply. Again, we're at 0.74. If this was drinking water, you wouldn't even have to tell your customers. You have literally, 2.5 parts before you'd have to even tell your customers you have it in your water. So it is leaving the plant at extremely low number. So I just wanted, I thought the board would want that information, get it out to the public that 1,4-dioxane, even though we might be detecting it in a well here or a well there, what is being released out into the environment is well below any drinking water standards. So
And we're adding S2 to the carbon, so even though it doesn't take a lot out, it does help, so.
when we do the rerouting, that will help a little bit. And S2 is the one that we had above the 8.3, or above the, 8.3. Or what, that's our bad one. So all the other ones are well below the drinking water standard, so.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Brings us to section 12, update on air quality testing. Brian or Jeff?
Yeah, well, I'll do that one too. Hey, last time we were together, I made a prediction that we could call Geosyntec and have them provide us a letter that would, with us providing them the information, that they could provide us a letter that there was no PFAS being stripped off of our air towers and being put out in the atmosphere. As you guys remember, the test results, what was coming in was going out. There was some test results, what was coming in, there was less going out. There was some test result, what was coming in was greater than what was going out. So it really, and it was so close that it really didn't matter. It's that you've sampled 5 minutes apart and you're getting different water. So basically what was coming in is going out. Geosyntec, I provided in your packet there, they did come back with a number. Board had authorized me for 2,000. They came back with 5,000 to do the study. I pumped the brakes and said I'll bring it back to the board. And that's what I'm doing here. If the board wants me to proceed, I'm okay with proceeding. I'm not talking against them. You guys authorized 2,000, so I didn't feel comfortable going double that amount. If it would have been 2,100, 2,200, I would have said, yeah, go ahead, and the board's gonna be okay. But that amount, I really wanted board approval before.
We have the test results. We just wanted a letter from an interpretation of the results. But we do have the results if it on record, as if anybody were to come to ask if we looked into this, we have those results.
Yep.
I don't know that we need to pay $5,000 for a letter. If we have done the test, have the results, and it's conclusive.
Now, I don't know if I'm trying to find the letter that I provided you guys right here. They are doing a little bit more, I think, beyond just the letter. But a mass balance approach is one way to look, but we may have 1 or 2 other ways to evaluate this to help increase the confidence of the conclusion. We request a time and material budget up to 5,000. So it could still be less than 5,000, but I did not again, feel comfortable. If the board wants to say, hey, yeah, go ahead and do it and do the mass balance part and then do time and material up to 3,000 or whatever, I'm well okay with whatever the board decides. It's just something you guys had taken an active interest in, and I wanted you guys to have the say in what we do from here on out, so.
Jeff, to Jennifer's point, they would not be doing any testing. They're just
Well, they-
using your information.
Well, they did say, but we have one or two other ways to evaluate this that will help increase our confidence. I don't know what those one or two other ways is, and it's it's time and material up to 5,000. If you guys, I think if we just said, hey, we want the mass balance in your letter, I think I would suspect it would be less, more aligned with the budget that I have. So.
I don't know that we need to pay for a letter. We paid for the test, which is what we wanted. I mean, Brian, I guess you were the one who kind of spearheaded that. How are you feeling about it?
This is my burden I'm bringing to the rest of the group, and I suffer from background in environmental reviews, and look. One other way to do it is there is an Eagle approved model for PFAS moving through air strippers, air tox study. It's a $15,000, $25,000 effort. I don't think that's warranted at all. I think in cases where you've got 1,000 parts per trillion of PFAS going through your air stripper, if you were different risk scenarios, but in this case we've got a input output test. I mean, it's one test, and it's not fully conclusive. I would say we could do an air tox study, and we could spend $50,000. And at the end of the study, the consultant is always going to say, "We're not 100%."
Right.
So I think we've passed the we've passed the common sense perspective, and that's in the input from the others. I'm not pressing to. I would press to spend $5K. Jeff, I was, if we could wrap this up for less than two, fine. But I think we've
offer a solution, a different solution.
A different solution, okay.
Farther, we could just do another test on the influent effluent. If it's the same, which it should be, then we could just put this to bed and said we've done multiple tests. They're basically what's coming in is going out, and we don't believe there's anything more we need to do. The tests would be, I forget what my tests are, I think they're $300 a piece. So for another $600, I could just run an influent, effluent, see if the numbers are the same or near enough to the same that we just, say it's good, and then we put it to bed
I'm good where we're at.
Yeah.
with not doing anything.
Yeah, I'm good where
Okay.
we're at.
I'm good with that too.
That is not a scientific conclusive study. It's just a good question to ask. I'm glad we asked. I'm glad we went through the steps of looking at the influent and outfall.
We done our due diligence, and I think it's time to just put it to bed.
One less item on the agenda.
Thank you, everyone. That brings us to public comments. Same rules as before. Anyone have anything to say? Okay, with that, we'll move on to committee comments. Anyone have anything briefly to say about today's meeting?
I've got a couple comments I make. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Powell for coming, and you can see our faces, and it's good to, put a face with a name also. And then I was at a public meeting. We've gone through some contentious periods of public comment. I think city council maybe did yesterday too. I was at a public meeting in Lake Township, Lake County, and they've got the digital clock on the back of the wall, and I had to make some public comments. And what happens is the digital clock, somebody must push a button and they get to 3 minutes, so that the person who's making the comments can see their time remaining. Unfortunately, I was at 2 minutes 50 seconds when I recognized what it was. But anyhow, I think it would be a good investment for the city. I don't know how much a digital clock that does that can cost.
Like a shot clock?
Was
You
less
can
than $100.
embed a digital clock on your screen for free. On your screen, you can just have in the top
Yeah.
left corner for free.
So ironically, before today's meeting, I was downloading apps for large font timers, because I was just gonna have it sit here,
Yeah.
because after what I experienced, or what we all experienced the last few months, I thought that would be a good thing. So it's interesting how we're thinking the same thing, but if we could do that, you know, Julie brought up an interesting comment a while back too, about having water available, because there was so much public comment, and they were like, you know, nervous and they needed a drink, but this is exactly what I was thinking about. It's just learning from our past mistakes, or maybe oversights and
We did.
changes.
Jennifer, how large?
Make it as big as you want.
Oh.
We use them in the classroom all the time.
A couple of years ago,
It's a
the city
godsend for the
council had a,
Right.
I don't know what you'd call it, but like a countdown light.
Yeah.
And it was green, then it'd go to yellow, and then it goes to red, and then they didn't.
Music starts playing.
They thought it was a bad idea, so I don't know. I mean, you know, but I like what you're thinking, you know, if we had a timer at least, and you always want people to wrap up their thoughts. You don't want them to stop at 3. If it's 3:10, it's 3:10 or whatever, as long as you're winding down, not winding up. So.
Anybody else have any comments? I just wanted to say real quick, Ruth Ann, you've been here for several meetings. Thank you for being here. It's really exciting to see the mayor and council members being here and being involved. I think it speaks volumes for how you care about the community. So thank you. That's all I have. Thank you. And that brings us to our next meeting. And Jeff, we usually do the third Wednesday of each month, and then obviously we do our 2 informational meetings, but you wanted to stay away from that.
I will not be here on the 3rd Wednesday of next month. I will be on a cruise down south, so if you guys want to join me there, we can have a meeting there, or if we could put it back to the 4th week of the month, 4th Wednesday of the month, I can special meeting notice it, and we can have a regular meeting then.
So for those of us that have extremely busy schedules, like Ms. Brown, Mr. Hamner, those of you that have a lot of meetings already, and I'm not trying to make other people feel unimportant.
But I would
does that
propose 10:30, just a week later.
Okay,
And what is that date, Jeff?
25th of February instead of the 18th.
I wouldn't be able to make it, but it's.
I can make it if we shift it earlier, but I have a presentation at 11.
Okay.
That might provide,
Hard no.
for,
Hard no.
On
Maybe we'll have
25th.
the results back.
yeah, for geosyntech.
Well, could we go with a Thursday? I'm sorry to make this messy, but
Yeah, I just can't do that week. That week of the 18th, I think I will be gone that whole week. So I can do a Wednesday or Thursday the next week.
at 10:30, does that fit?
I can't on
You can't?
Thursday, the 26th.
What day that week would work for you?
Tuesday?
Tuesday, the 24th.
I'm okay on Tuesday.
Tuesday, I'm flying back in on that Tuesday.
Oh,
Okay.
So
How about Friday?
I cannot do
You
that
can't?
Friday.
I'm out that whole week.
you know on Friday.
Do we want to take this offline and maybe put some ideas out there, Jeff, and then we
yeah, I can do it as long as you guys respond just to me. I'll put out something and you guys can blind copy. I can put out a couple dates and whatever you guys, whatever I get the most positive response, I'll just make that the date.
Okay,
So,
thank you for everyone's flexibility.
Thank you.
All right. And if I could have support to adjourn the meeting, we can. Yes, sir. Sorry.
no, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your extra time today. I appreciate it.
Jennifer,